I really do love Cleveland. It's a small point in the story, but my wife thinks that I might be making fun of Cleveland, and I truly love my in-laws, for real, and Cleveland. Hello, and welcome to the Nutshell True Story Hour, a podcast for people who love stories. My name is Aaron Carnes, and I'm an author and one of the creators of In a Nutshell Storytelling, a monthly storytelling show in Sacramento, California. My co-creators are the world-class comedian Keith Lowell Jensen.
Hey everybody, this is Keith.
And Amy B., a storyteller and the person who pretty much runs this whole shindig.
It's Amy!
Every episode, we share with you one of our favorite stories told live at our show, followed by a conversation with the storyteller about how that story came to be. This week, Sacramento storyteller John Aubert tells a simple story of visiting his in-laws in Cleveland and returning home to Sacramento. But the journey proves to be completely humiliating for John. In fact, he can't bring to tell his wife what happened on his drive home when he first sees her. He needs to take some time to collect himself to admit his complete and utter failure. The theme for the show was planes, trains, and automobiles, and each one of those forms of transportation makes an appearance. After the story, we chatted with John inside the Sofia Theater, where we learn more about his story, his process, and everything he does for the Sacramento storytelling scene.
It is summer of 1972, and my 7-year-old face is plastered to the window, looking out at the world with wonder, anticipation, and abject terror. You'd see my parents, my 2 sisters, and I have piled into our family's puke green country squire station wagon for an epic cross-country road trip, and we have just crossed the border into the great state of Oklahoma. And there is one thing that everybody has been telling me about the great state of Oklahoma, and one thing that I am sure that I am going to see when I am there, and that is a tornado. And amazingly, while we are there, we see not a single fucking tornado. No death, no destruction, no mayhem. I am disappointed. But what I know is that that experience was an early catalyst for my lifelong love of traveling, and I've had many amazing experiences. I was once served a moose heart omelet just a stone's throw from the Arctic Circle. I partied at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow during the Cold War. I once visited a nun museum in Quebec. Who knew Canadian nuns would be so thrilling? But as much as I love traveling, weirdo that I am, I really love transportation. I am a sucker for looking out the window and watching the world go by. I am endlessly curious about the stories behind the people and the places that I see on the other side of the glass. Case in point, it is summer 1987, early morning, and I am on a train barreling through the Spanish countryside somewhere near the Portuguese border. And exhausted from a horrible night of sleep, I step out of the crowded train compartment into the corridor, and I press my nose against the glass to watch the sunrise. But as the train whistle blares and my vision comes into focus, I find myself staring into the 19th century. Standing there at a dirt road rail crossing, next to her donkey cart, is an ancient leather-faced old woman. And for just a split second, our eyes lock together. And then she's gone. And the contrast of history, technology, and privilege nearly paralyzes my brain. I think, who the hell am I to interrupt her life in this massive, stinking, loud hulk of iron? She still haunts me. Another case in point. It is a cold night in San Francisco in 1992, and I am piled into a car with a bunch of my buddies somewhere out in the Richmond district, a block off of Geary. And as we round the corner, I see this beautiful young woman standing at the curb. And I see her, and she sees me, and time stands still. And then she raises her shirt and flashes me. And I say, did you guys see that? She flashed me. And they just start laughing at me like they don't believe me. They're too excited about a hot tip on a party that they just got. And I will tell you, I remember nothing about that evening except I remember her. I have so many questions. Who was she? What did she want? Is she okay? Is she related to the lady with the donkey cart? One more case in point is every flight I've ever taken. I will sell my soul for a window seat. I will sell your soul for a window seat. I will give up the naming rights to my own children in exchange for a window seat. I am sorry, girls. I'm just so fascinated. It's a compulsion. It's kind of like an illness. I'll look out there and go, oh, there's my old summer camp. That's the cabin where I'm not going to tell you that one. Or I'm flying to visit my wife's family, and I'm like, honey, there's your mom's house. I think she's waving. Or there's a time when I was flying to Europe taking the polar route, and I look outside and I see ice. And I spend the next half hour looking for polar bears from 32,000 feet. One time in the mid-90s on a flight, I don't remember where, per usual, my nose is glued to the window. And I hear, sir, excuse me, sir. And finally I whip my head around, and there's a really nice young woman, and she says, are you okay? And I think, well, I was okay until you interrupted my important work here. She was worried that I seemed despondent. But here's the deal. All of these experiences culminate in one single seminal experience that begins in the shining metropolis of Cleveland, Ohio. Now, as a kid from California, I never imagined that I would be spending so much time in Cleveland. But you see, my dear wife, Nancy, is youngest of 10, and most all of them are still there in the greater Cleveland area. And so it is late July of the year 2000, and we have been there for 3 weeks. And I am done. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my in-laws, and I love Cleveland, right, honey? But the deal is I need to get back to start a new school year. So the plan is Nancy is going to stay and visit her family for longer and fly back, and I get to drive back. And this is beautiful. This is amazing. I love driving. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to make it in one day, straight shot back to Davis, California. I know it. And that first day, I almost make it to Omaha. Okay, make it to Omaha, because I kind of got a late start. But the next morning, it is go time. I am up before sunlight getting ready, and I am in the car, and there is just a hint of light on the eastern horizon. Now, there are 2 things that you need to know about this day ahead. One is that it's I-80 all the way back to Davis, California. And the other thing is that this particular stretch of Interstate 80 through Nebraska is flat and featureless. There is literally nothing out there except asphalt, corn, and sky. So I get on the road and I am immediately in the zone. Interstate vehicular meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. And I am so focused. I'm going to make it back to California. This is great. But as we've already pointed out, I am essentially genetically predisposed to noticing stuff. So eventually there's a farmhouse, but I see this sizable ceramic garden gnome with a wry smile and a little jaunty outfit, and I look at him and I think, gnome. And then I'm back in the zone. Interstate, vehicular, meditation, nothing's going to stop me. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. And I have no idea how much time passes. Couple of hours, couple of minutes, a couple of months. I am, as I said, in the zone. But again, eventually things catch my eye, and I notice there's another farmhouse. But in particular, they have this life-size plywood silhouette cutout of a cowboy leaning against a tree, and he's got a little kerchief. And I look and I think, cowboy. And I'm back in the zone. Nothing will deter me. Interstate, vehicular, meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. And I'm driving, and time is meaningless. It is just a construct. I begin to daydream. I think maybe I'll start a church. the New Age Church of the Most Holy Interstate. Or something like that. I'm still working on the name. And I'm driving. And eventually, I see in the distance, on the horizon, this amazingly neon electric yellow house. And I look and I think, wow, that is a yellow house. But I'm back in the zone. Interstate, vehicular, meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. I'm driving. But there's one thing that being in the zone is not going to help with, and that's my bladder. So eventually, I need to find an exit. And sure enough, eventually I find one, and I pull off, and I make a pit stop and get some food. I fill up with gas, and I am back on the interstate. It's like I'm a Formula One driver. I mean, that took me 10 minutes. And as before I am in the zone, I am driving, I'm wondering about my church and the membership to my church, and I'm thinking I'm going to be home back in California in no time. This is my goal. And interestingly, I see another neon electric yellow house, and I look at it and I think, yellow paint must have been on sale. And I keep driving. I'm back in the zone. Interstate, vehicular, meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. I'm driving. And I'm going to be back in California in no time at this rate. And oddly, I then, a little bit later, see another life-size plywood silhouette cutout of a cowboy leaning against a tree. And I think, wow. Those cowboys are really popular here in Nebraska. But I am back in the zone. Interstate, vehicular, meditation. I am one with the asphalt, corn, and sky. Because I'm going to make it back to California. And then, don't you know it, I see another sizable garden gnome. With a wry smile and a jaunty outfit, and I think, man, that little guy is super similar to the one that I saw much earlier this morning, except the one that I saw this morning was on the other side of the interstate. There is something that I haven't yet mentioned here. I need to head back to California to start a new school year teaching geography. That's right. I teach geography, maps, navigation. And so in this moment, I am freaking out. I am beside myself, apoplectic. All I want is to see a sign that says, 80 west, 80 west, 80 west. And there's nothing out there. There's no exits. I don't have a phone that has GPS. I have a stupid little Nokia phone. Nothing. And I'm dying inside. And I think, wait a minute. I'm a smart guy. I'm going to science this. Because what I know is that that stretch of Interstate 80 goes directly east-west, and I know that I'm about 40 degrees north of the equator, and I know that in late July the sun is hovering over about 14 degrees north of the equator, so I start to do some calculations, and I adjust for time zones, and I adjust for daylight savings, and what I know is that if I am driving the right way, I am driving westward back toward California, I'm going to find the sun right back over my left shoulder, right about there. And it's not there. And if I am driving the wrong way, back toward the shining metropolis of Cleveland, Ohio, the sun is going to be off to my right about where I see it. So I have just used my laser-sharp intellect to determine that I have been driving the wrong way on Interstate 80 probably for hours. I am crushed. I am demoralized. This is horrible and embarrassing and humiliating. And finally I find an exit. And I pull off and I drive over the overpass and I head back out onto that stretch of Interstate 80 for the third time that day. And I drive past that damn stupid effing little garden gnome. Then I pass that mother effing cowboy. And I pass that ungodly, stupid yellow house. And eventually I need to pull off and take a break, and I find an exit, and I pull into the same gas station that I had pulled into earlier that morning, and I fill up an entire tank of gas. People, I have just driven an entire tank of gas to nowhere. You ready for this? I have driven 160 miles in the wrong direction and back. Now, to say that this is embarrassing or demoralizing, it doesn't even scratch the surface. I am personally and professionally crushed about this. This is so embarrassing. What I need is that tornado to just come and put me out of my misery. And honestly, I really have no idea how I got home. Somehow I got home, and somewhere in there I call and I check in with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were going to make better time." Yeah, so did I. I don't even tell her. It takes me a week to admit this to my own wife. And I go on. I hide this from everyone. I do not tell this story for years. But several years go by, and one day I'm in my classroom and I am teaching about the position of the sun as it changes during the seasons in the course of the day. And I think that story would be a really good object lesson. So I proceed to tell my students on that day this story. And when I am done, their jaws drop. And they howl with laughter. Because it turns out they really like to see their professor look like a fool. But they also really like their professor to be just a little more human and a little more relatable and a little more approachable. And this experience has served me well. I have joyfully told this story to my students many times. And it has been such a great reminder to own my mistakes, to learn to laugh at myself, and to never take myself too seriously. But just a month or two ago, as I was thinking about telling this story to all of you, I had this epiphany. And that is that for me, this story is such a great metaphor for storytelling. I realized that the power, the beauty, and the joy of sharing one's story with others comes from summoning the courage to invite others along for the ride and to ask them to look out the window together. And so to all of you, I say thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I hope you enjoyed the view.
John, there's some things I feel like need to be addressed right away, right here up front, that people are going to be curious about, all right?
Jump in.
Okay. Moose heart omelet in the Arctic.
So my junior year abroad was spent in Sweden. And I actually did have a Swedish girlfriend, and her mom served up a moose heart omelet.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you guys kill the moose first?
Her dad was a big hunter.
Oh my
I did
gosh.
not injure any moose personally.
Okay. Partied in Moscow embassy.
That same year, I had nothing to do on my spring break, so I went with some of my other friends who were studying Soviet and East European studies. And for a remarkably low price, we got to hang out in Leningrad and Moscow for 10 days.
Wow.
2 weeks before Chernobyl.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
And so one evening in there, somebody said, I heard this rumor that various Western embassies had this cooperative agreement where if you were from one of those countries, you could just go to the embassy on the prescribed night and go and hang out. And it was party night at the U.S. Embassy. So we took our IDs and went up to the front and they let us in.
Wow. All right. Thrilling Canadian nuns.
Much more recently, we were on a family trip with some of my wife's lovely family. And there was a day where nobody really wanted to do anything. It was one of these things where they're all in the house that we've rented and hanging out. And I just got restless. And I said, well, I'm just going to go out. And they said, okay, take care. And so that is where I went, is the Canadian Nun Museum. There is a nun museum in Bay St. Paul.
Thrilling.
It was, I might have overstated that slightly for effect.
It worked. I was super curious. I'm like, I got to know about the thrilling Canadian nuns.
Did you put these story seeds in to try to make sure we'd bring you back?
I know, that's 5 stories right there. No. And also, why were you in Spain?
There was the same Swedish girlfriend.
Yeah.
I had a year later, and I went back to Europe and saved up all my pennies, and we got a Eurail pass and traveled throughout Europe and ended up randomly on a train late one night into the early morning.
That is really cool.
So listening to your story, one of the things that I'm struck with is that the level of embarrassment and humiliation you feel towards going in the wrong direction for 3 hours.
Yes.
Now, not everyone would feel that way. Some people might just kind of shrug their shoulders. Why was it so humiliating for you?
Well, I pride myself on my sense of direction. I pride myself on my knowledge of the world around me, in that I have studied and I teach geography. And so I guess assumed that I should be able to do better. And it just seemed like the most boneheaded mistake. And as the story relays, incredibly ironic for someone who teaches geography.
I love the response from the crowd when you reveal what you teach.
Yes, which is why this is a little background note for people. I specifically told Keith not to introduce me by saying that I taught geography.
I'm sorry about that.
No. He said I was a professor. He didn't say I taught geography.
Yeah, I did. I understood the assignment. Back off, lady.
No, I'm sorry, because I think I was supposed to say something and I forgot to.
Oh.
So I was like, I'm sorry. I really like that. It feels like you're saying in a way that your love, and you kind of intimated it at the end, that your love of travel is similar to your love of story. There's a lot of similarities and overlap. It's almost like stories for you are the equivalent to you looking out the window, like when you were a child. At least that's what I got from it. I was also thinking that this sensation of traveling and looking out the window and your love of story, this could be why you like The Moth so much. Because it's like 5-minute stories. It's similar to like looking out the window. It's like a very brief glimpse into a life, and then you're moving on to the next thing.
That is a very adept observation. It's like a series of short stories.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It is to the point where my wife routinely has to say, keep your eye on the road, because I really am just so fascinated by it. It could be anything. It could be elements in nature. It could be the weather. It could be a little bit of fog. So I generally am a safe driver, let's be clear, but it is a deep fascination that is intertwined with my love of storytelling and my curiosity about people in the world.
You make that sound very noble, but I got to wonder how much of it is just you hoping someone flashes you again. Where is she? She's got to be out there.
It's multi-layered. It's multi-layered.
It's working on several levels, Keith. We have our fingers crossed for several things at once.
I'm really curious about your decision. This is a craft question here, to sort of give us these sort of little glimpses into your life as a person that travels before you begin the actual story itself.
Yeah. So this story was born really as a short 5-minute style moth timing story, and did not have the preamble and the backstory. And when you wonderful people invited me, I knew that I would have a little more time. I made it clear to take more time. And I really sat down and I thought long and hard about the context of that story in my larger life. And that's what appeared. I don't know exactly how I arrived at that, but it just kept coming back to the idea of looking out the window and my fascination with the world. And sometimes there are little events in your life that one might squirrel away and have as a little memory that aren't really their own story, but they make a good anecdote. And this was the perfect opportunity to weave in a series of anecdotes. Some of those might, I suppose, be longer stories. But that's how I arrived at the preamble, is this idea of looking out the window.
And you make this distinction too, that while you love to travel, you have a particular love for transportation.
Yes.
Could you kind of expand upon that a little bit?
I know that sounds weird. And as I was thinking about how to convey that to the audience, I thought they're going to think it's weird. But then I thought, no, you just have to lean into it. Certainly, I love travel and food and meeting and conversing with people, all of the other aspects of travel. But I realized as I sat down and thought about it and thought about the parallels with the actual driving the wrong way story, that I did have many memories and a particular fascination with moving through the world while one is traveling. So for me, traveling is for some people, they would simply discount the idea of getting from one place to another. And for me, I realized, well, that's really a particular part of the fascination for me.
I really relate to that.
Yeah, me too. I'm 100% with you on that one. It's the time that you spend getting there. Sometimes the destination is just an excuse to go get in on the bus or in the train.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for me, it's walking. I have that same, it's the getting to A to B via my feet it's the act of the movement is what I really like, the moving through space.
Right. And that, in fact, is so much more intimate because you have all of the smells and the noises and a much closer proximity to all of those experiences that you are wandering through and visiting in this ephemeral sense.
But I also like the glimpses too, the fast movement of cars and road trips and stuff. I wanted to mention another craft thing that I enjoyed, and that's your use of repetition. I thought that was really effective. By the repetition you used made us kind of put us in the zone. And was that your intention? Because it worked. I mean, I felt like you were zoning me out. Same
the
with
asphalt, the corn, the sky.
Just the Holy Trinity. And also with that is that you seemed, the story really relied on pacing. The main crux of the story really relied on pacing. And and the meting out, the drip, drip, drip of information. Do you feel like, well, how did you decide that that's how you were going to deliver the story to us? I mean, I assume that's how you said it to your students.
Yeah. And students only ever got, again, the much shorter version, really the version that starts with, I never thought I'd be spending so much time in Ohio. That's where the original story starts. Mm-hmm. In regards to repetition, I have heard other storytellers, and I've heard it certainly in music and poetry, and it resonates with me. This is certainly one of the first times in a story that I've ever relied on it as much as I have, to the point that I'm a little bit worried of whether it was going to work or be overused. But it just felt natural, so I just kept going with it.
It worked. I mean, it also created a rhythm.
Yeah. Well, and in regards to pacing, I have, lucky for me, only been really telling stories on a stage for about 6 or 7 years, but I've been in front of groups forever. I was an old kid who went to summer camp and a summer camp counselor and been a teacher and a college teacher for years. And so standing in front of groups, fortunately for me, is natural. And the pacing, I think, is something that I have come by. But I'm really big on pauses. When I talk with other people about storytelling, when I give people tips about storytelling, I laser in on the idea of pacing and timing and pause, because it doesn't come natural to some people. And it really enhances the effect, as it were, I guess.
So you're saying it was intentional, and you did but also it did feel like a road trip, like you're enhancing by kind of the meting out of the information and keeping it nice and slow like that. You're not giving us too much. You're drawing it out. It is very much like we are with you in the moment, seeing the gnome, seeing the cowboy.
Well, that's good, because that is what I was trying to do, and this story in particular may be a little more thoroughly ingrained in my brain in terms of memory than other stories, because this one has been told in a shorter version for years with my students.
I'm curious, since we are talking about, because it's an interesting experiment we're doing where we're giving the storytellers more time. What did it tell me the difference in how it felt for you overall having more time, but how did that part of it that you had told before, how was it different, having had a chance to do a preamble and having the chance to maybe stretch it a little? Was it more challenging? Was it easier? Did you like the effects?
I loved every minute of it. Being a type A guy, I'm really big on rules and timing and time limits and observing them, to the point that it is stressful. If I am on a moth stage and I'm excited about telling a story, it is, I enjoy storytelling, of course, but it's stressful. And so there is a certain relaxation and comfort. And to your point about rhythm and timing, Amy, it really having more time just lends itself to a natural flow, as opposed to staring at a clock, which I just refuse to do. If I'm timed, I'm going to try to keep it in the ballpark, and I never want to step on anybody else's time in a storytelling show, but I've quit looking at clocks and timers.
Really? That surprises me.
I just try to make sure I come under. I look at the timing beforehand. When I'm on stage, I just don't want to let it bother me anymore.
You have that prominent timer at Do Tell.
I know.
I'm gigantic.
I'm paradox, yes.
So you're a geography professor?
Yes.
And it was your professional... your professional persona, your idea about yourself as a geography teacher was something that you felt like was under attack by going the wrong direction for 3 hours. Did you become a geography teacher because of your love of travel and transportation and everything that we're talking about? Or I'm curious how connected these things are for you.
Yeah, and they're actually really connected. I mean, I feel very fortunate that I love my job. And originally, I got this opportunity to take a college class that was going to go study biology of wildlife in the desert. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I get to go camping and get some college credit. And then it was canceled. And this was a crushing disappointment. And I found this other class called Death Valley Landscapes, Geography in the Arid Environment. And I thought, well, that is cool, but why would someone go to Death Valley to study like states and capitals? Because I didn't really realize that at the college level, it is a much richer, deeper science. It's the science of trying to understand place and the many factors that create place, both in the cultural world and in the biophysical world. So, yeah, I mean, I've always really loved nature and spending time in nature, and also had a knack for teaching others. Prior to getting into geography, I was an outdoor education teacher, 6th grade science camp. Did that for.
Wanted to be a park ranger, didn't you?
And I wanted to be a park ranger. There was one year where I was a substitute teacher, so I taught whatever they wanted me to teach, and so I really did land at what I thought was the right level of teaching. I didn't have to go after grants and grub for money, but I also it was a pretty elevated science, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to come across as too hoity-toity, but I do also want to say that initially I really thought that there needed to be this level of professionalism and a little bit of formal distance between me and my students, and so I didn't really get that personal with them initially. And then I realized, oh my God, that's not really necessarily helpful, because it can be intimidating, and we're all just people and they need to understand that. And so part of me telling this story was an evolution in my larger career as a teacher, just trying to be more human to them, more accessible to them, to let them know that, it's okay. You shouldn't be that stressed, because I've discovered over the years that, freshmen in a college class, there's a certain number of them out there that are just petrified, that are just completely afraid, because it's all new, because they're fearing failure. It's a new environment. Unlike me, my dad was a college administrator. Many of my students have never set foot on a college campus, much less their family and friends and parents have set foot on a college campus. So I wanted to be more accessible. So there's a long answer to a short question.
That's wild that you wanted to be a park ranger, because I wanted to be Yogi the Bear. And so we might have ended
Your
up
natural enemies.
working together anyway.
Right, working together. And
Wait, I thought you'd be enemies.
Speaking, they have a certain respect for each other.
They do?
Yeah, I think so. Oh. And speaking of bears, has anyone ever told you before that you sound like Winnie the Pooh?
I have not gotten that one.
With a touch of Tigger when you get excited.
Yeah,
It's
I've
interesting.
not gotten that one.
What are you talking about?
You don't hear it?
Maybe I hear the Tigger.
He sounds like Winnie the Pooh, especially when he's calm and saying these soothing things, and then he gets excited, and this little
Tigger
it's like
comes
his
out.
sign is Winnie the Pooh with a Tigger rising.
Oh, that's
All right,
wonderful.
I'll
I
take
love
that. I'll
that.
take that. That's good
This,
company.
this is from someone who has several times been compared to Kermit the Frog. So I don't say that lightly. I know how that can affect one's.
Oh, I wanted to know, did you ever decide how people would gain membership into your church?
I first of all, I would totally.
Because we want in.
Yeah, I would totally
Give us,
attend
what do we
that
have to
church.
do? What are
I
the
would
tenets?
tithe to the church of
How
the
much do we have to
interstate.
pay you? Like,
I have not spent a lot of time detailing that. I'm still just really noodling it through. I don't know if we could start some sort of cooperative agreement with the spaghetti monster people.
Pastafarians.
Exactly.
There's a John Coltrane church in San Francisco.
I think that would be could be an alliance of some sort.
I think so.
I'm going to go to the John Aubert Church. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. You have been hosting a storytelling event here in Sacramento, technically Rancho Cordova,
Yeah.
for how many? 3 years now?
Come this May, in a few months, it'll be 3 years.
The original.
Haven't missed a second Tuesday in 3 years.
Really, you've never missed one.
I personally, as the host, had to be absent, but I have had stand-in hosts.
Oh, okay.
So the event
Okay.
has happened.
So the event is called Do Tell. So as a almost 3 year running host, give us a little insight into your perspective on what makes a good host, how you approach hosting an event, what you think the host's role of this sort of event is?
Yeah, the first word that comes to mind is safe. Certainly it has to be fun and comfortable, and I try to be as funny as I can, which helps people feel comfortable, but people need to feel safe if they're going to tell stories. And so I try to make it clear that, well, there's plenty of people who say, well, I could immediately, if I mention this or invite them, I could never tell a story. I'm like, well, I don't think you understand. We don't force you to tell a story. If you show up at this event, you can just listen. So people's fear of speaking in public, quote unquote, is sometimes immediate. Now, of course, a storytelling event attracts people who want to tell stories, but even amongst that group, they kind of need to know that that they're going to be received, that the expectation is that they bring their genuine selves as opposed to something really super polished and perfect. So I don't necessarily, I'd have to think exactly. My goal is just to try to be warm and welcoming and make it low stakes and make it feel safe. And I've had, fortunately, a lot of people say that about the event.
Yeah. Yes. And last time I was at Do Tell, you just put your own name in the hat. You didn't just say, I'm going to tell a story. You left it up to chance. Like, I don't know, a lot of hosts maybe they would say, well, I'm hosting, I'm going to tell a story.
Yeah, I don't know if that's intentionally a barb at me, but no, I won't be doing that. I will continue to selfishly take my time.
There is an interesting evolution to this question. So since it's out there, let's talk about it. I mean, I used to joke, and it was only a half joke that I started this along with a lot of help from my friends at Capital Storytelling in terms of creating promotional materials and advertising it and using their social media. So I don't want to pretend like this is just my thing, but I would say that, that we do tell so that I would have an opportunity to tell stories, and which I love to do. I have been super fortunate in those 3 years to have gotten to tell a lot of stories. And I got to the point where I was feeling a little bit guilty because there are plenty of times where I was having to turn people away. And I never wanted to do that. And I thought, well, my story could live to be told another day. And on rare occasions, I don't necessarily have an immediate story ready to tell. But I had this discussion with my wife, and she said, well, I just think you should put your name in the hat. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, I guess that would be kind of egalitarian. That seems like it would be a fair thing to do. And so what I have decided at the moment is to put my name in the hat unless I really want to tell a story.
I knew there was a but there. I could just feel it
but
coming.
The funny thing,
I like your butt, John.
The funny thing that happened that same night is you pulled your own name from the hat and told the story. And then right after you was our friend Chip Powell.
Yes.
And before he began his story, he went on a campaign for you to be the resident storyteller of your own event, and that you should be allowed to tell a story without having to put your own name in the hat.
Wow.
Well, that was very gracious of him.
You have a good PR man.
Yes. And that is a beautiful perk of being a host of a storytelling show, because, man, I mean, I love to hear other people's stories. I really, really do. Possibly more than telling my own. Depends on the day of the week. But I do love to be able to tell stories and hone them and spend time on them, because it's a privilege. It's somebody whose my day job is to teach. For somebody whose day job is to just teach college students, that's not storytelling. That's lecturing, leading a group in activities and so forth. So yeah, I'm just a tiny bit conflicted. So that's what I've arrived at, is that my ace in the hole is that I will claim that right back if I really have a story that's on my head and my heart to tell.
We've been talking a lot lately about what role storytelling played in our lives growing up. I think I always just assumed that all of us grew up trading stories in our family, that being kind of part of our family culture. It was interesting to hear Amy talk about she didn't. That wasn't part of your family, sitting around swapping stories. So I'm curious what kind of role storytelling played in your life when you were young, before it was like a formal pursuit. Or maybe it always was a formal pursuit. I don't know.
Yeah, we in my immediate family, I remember goading my dad into telling stories about when he was a young man, and he would have some classics that to this day I will still try to goad him into telling about the pet turtle who lived downstairs from him, or the night that they went up this like 5-story walk up on Halloween in San Francisco back in the 40s to get these what ended up being these really decrepit, moldy chocolate bars. And so I really was fascinated by these stories. My mom was a public health nurse for quite a while at a family planning clinic. And oh my gosh, when I got a little bit older and I would sneak in where my older sisters were, hearing her tell the stories, I'm like, that was fascinating to me. And of course, she did not divulge any personal information or identifying information, but she, as you can imagine, had some pretty big whoppers of stories. And I'm actually working on a story now for a big Moth Grand Slam coming up that I'm excited about. And I'm thinking back to my early fascination with stories. And I had a 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Virgo, and I just loved that woman. And one of the things she did was encourage us to journal. And I would just pour my little 3rd grade heart out into my journal. And she would answer with these seemingly intimate details about what she had for dinner or things she did on the weekend. And I was just taken. I was fascinated. I felt seen. And so I think that there's something to that connected to my modern day, current, contemporary fascination with stories.
So you like something about the reveal.
I do. There is the suspense of waiting for something, or the sudden U-turn, the left turn, the unexpected. I'm fascinated by it. And I really encourage storytellers, and I look at my own stories to preserve and enhance those moments.
Excellent advice. I just want to say, I think you're a good storyteller. I think you're a fantastic host. And I think you have a hidden talent in that you're also, I only know one other person that has the perfect audience laugh, and that's Aaron. You have the best audience laugh. Like, having you in the audience when you're telling a story is the best. And thank you.
You are most welcome. I appreciate all of those compliments.
Oh, that's so funny to hear you say that. I used to have a list of like my favorite laughers. Like Babalu was on the list.
And Aaron,
are you a good laugh? Well, I haven't been keeping the list up. So yeah,
Well, when you make the new list,
you're on. You and John.
Me and John.
you can hear him in your specials.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's me. That's me
John
and Keith's specials.
You need John on one side, Aaron on the other.
You know what's really sweet? My dad has a habit of doing this short, sharp, ha kind of laugh. So always in a place where no one else laughs. And so I can always listen to my specials and hear my dad be like, oh, there he was.
So the other thing about you, John, too, is that you're kind of a storyteller wrangler. Like, you're the guy that's like, hey, I'm going to the Moth in Berkeley and I got extra tickets and I got a van, or what? I don't know if you have a van, but I have a vehicle. So it seems like you're very excited about getting other people interested in participating in storytelling events.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, I don't own a van, but I have been looking into renting a 15-passenger van on occasion.
Goodness, dedication.
For that exact purpose. I just love, it's kind of an overused, almost a trite phrase in the world of storytelling, but I truly believe everybody has a story, and I am super fascinated at the idea that they're lurking there amongst people, and that I could find ways to discover them, or that I could find ways to help other people experience that same joy, that same curiosity that I do. And so I was surprised when I first found out that that the moth, this thing called the moth, was happening not that far from where I live, and I kept thinking, well, do other people know this fascinating thing where people just get up on stage and blather on about their personal private lives because it's fascinating? And so I just wanted to kind of turn it into a social thing. And my daughter was living in Berkeley, very close to the venue. So while she was in college, I got her to go with me, and my niece and her boyfriend and people I work with. And so, yeah, I just want to share the wealth and the love of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point that you ended up being part of Capital Storytelling.
Yeah.
And for folks listening at home, why don't you explain what that is and also your role in it?
Yeah, so somebody who knew me and my fascination with storytelling kind of not that long before the pandemic said, hey, there's kind of a organization that's similar to the Moth, but they're local to Sacramento, called Capital Storytelling. And Dr. Lisa Cantrell, who's a faculty at Sac State, this was kind of her pet project, and she kept surrounding herself and finding people who loved stories. And she started this, and initially they were just doing kind of open mics and small curated events. And she realized, especially with the open mics, that people would really benefit from storytelling instruction. and so she started offering classes, and it really just grew from there. So I took a class from them right as the pandemic shut the world down. So our last class was canceled, unfortunately, but I stuck with them as lots of things in the world moved online and on Zoom. And I owe a lot of my knowledge of storytelling and my ability to share it with others with the folks at Capital Storytelling. They have a kind of a unique program, speaking of sharing one's love for storytelling, called Storytelling Ambassador. And it is coming up pretty soon. They've had 3 or 4 different classes. They've done one every year, and it's a fairly involved, I won't say rigorous, but it's a multi-hour, multi-meeting group class cohort that learns about how to teach others storytelling, learns about how to produce events, learns about how to do it in a really safe and respectful way that encourages lots of voices, not just the voices we hear most commonly, but also voices that are often not heard in storytelling events like this. And so I was a storytelling ambassador, and now I help out wherever and whenever I can, when I can fit that into my day job.
The other thing Capital Storytelling does, or I think it's been doing for a few years, is immigrant stories. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, annually for 4 or 5 years running in October on National Immigrants Day, they have been hosting a curated storytelling show with featuring first and second generation immigrants from the Sacramento area. And the back story to that, the background work involved in that, is that they held storytelling workshops at community centers and various groups all throughout the Sacramento region in order to find those stories and help people tell those stories. So they, when they've selected people to tell stories, they spend time coaching those folks, and then it culminates in a big event at Sac State, and it's been running, as I said, continuously for about 5 years now. And this most recent time, they had to get a bigger room, and of course, there's a lot of stress regarding that event these days in particular. But at that event, especially, unfortunately, there was no commotion or disruption of that event. But it's been a great way to make sure voices get heard that are commonly suppressed.
You have been to nearly every In a Nutshell. So give me your favorite either story or full event of ours.
That's That's such
You
a
have time.
tough one. That's such a tough one. Let me say that maybe because it's the most fresh in my mind, but the most recent one that I went to,
Stories of Substance.
Stories of Substance.
Drugs are nice.
Yeah, drugs are nice.
We had such a hard time with that one.
Was to me the vibe. All of the stories were lovely, but the vibe itself, the overall vibe, just had such a community vibe to it, such an emotionally connected vibe to it, which is what I live for in storytelling. And I mean, it's hard to, talk about storytelling as an art. So there's so much subjectivity to it. Bo makes me laugh like I never laughed. JP can keep me on the edge of my seat and just mesmerize me and piss me off too. Kyrie invites me into a world, whether it's his showbiz world or the neighborhood that he comes from, that I'm not going to personally experience in my life. So
Ohio again.
Ohio, yeah, absolutely. I've dropped a few names, but it is hard to pinpoint any single moment.
It is really nice to hear you say that, because that show, we got in trouble for the name, had to change it.
Oh,
we got two storytellers, like really the two that we built the show around, dropped out.
The week of the show.
So yeah, I mean, our programs had the wrong storytellers in it, and yet I felt the same way as you at the end of it. I was like, that flowed perfectly. That everything, once the lights came on, it went exactly like it was just meant to be. It was so, and the fact that it was such a pain in the ass dragging it across the finish line, it was really satisfying to have it. And I'm especially glad to hear you say that it was really good from an audience member's perspective.
Do you guys know the song Cleveland Rocks?
That's in my notes. That was my final question.
We need to all sing that.
Sure. This is your final
Cleveland
question.
Rocks.
Cleveland rocks.
Okay, let's sing it for Nancy. Your
Living
wife's
in
name is
sin
Nancy,
with a
right?
safety pin.
Wait, no, we got to sing it really fast. Let's all
I'm
just say
so
Cleveland.
not gonna sing
1,
it.
2, ready, go.
Cleveland rocks. Cleveland rocks. Cleveland rocks. Cleveland rocks. Cleveland rocks.
Ohio.
Oh, exactly.
Thank you for listening to the Nutshell True Story Hour. Please follow us on our Substack, which you can find by going to inanutshellstorytelling.com, and check out our live show, In a Nutshell, at the Sofia Theater in downtown Sacramento. Our next show is on Friday, April 17th. The theme, Take This Job and Shove It. You should also check out our smaller show, Wildcard, where you can put your name in the knot hat and tell a story. It's the third Thursday of the month at Old Soul in the Alley. Although beginning in May, it'll be on the third Wednesday of the month at Teneral Winery in Midtown Sacramento. All that info and more is on our Substack, inanutshellstorytelling.com. If you would like to support us, there are a few ways. You can become a paid Substack subscriber. You can also sponsor our show program. It's all appreciated, and it'll help us keep live storytelling alive in Sacramento. See you again in 2 weeks.